All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Canopus Chats with JD Price. It's been a pleasure just doing work that you can be proud of and just to share with you different people's story. Thank you so much for the feedback that you've given me. And now that we're in season 2, I'm bringing to you different people from various walks of life who are going to share their stories and talk about the choices that they have made in the past that has led them to where they are today. So season 2 is all about choices. My choice, your choice, and the people's choice. And so I'm honored today to have as one of my guests, a friend, as well as someone who's a professional, and he's going to share the choices that he has made in the past, both his professional as well as his academic and social choices that has helped to cultivate the person that you have and that you'll be hearing from today. So just a little bit about his background. He graduated top of his class from SUNY Albany with an undergraduate degree in physics and computer science, and then he went on to get advanced degree in computer programming or computer management, and has worked in various fields, whether it was the VP of IT at a major retailer or working as a program manager at one of the top 4 tech companies. So I'll let him tell you a little bit about that later on. My guest is none other than Naron Pete Stewart. Everybody, let's welcome Pete to our show today. Yay! Welcome, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing splendid. Thanks for the wonderful introduction, and thanks for making.
Awesome. You are welcome. You are welcome. So we're not going to keep the people waiting. We want to jump right in because IT is buzzing right now, and I am sure there are a lot of things that you want to share with us. But to get us started, since the theme for season 2 is choices, I'm going to give you your choice, right? And so in my hand are 3 cards, and they are I am, and you're going to create an I am statement. So you will get to choose which I am statement you elaborate on. And so when I start off by saying you pick either 1, 2, or 3, so you can pick, and when you pick, I'll tell you what you're going to elaborate more on I am.
Number 1 for sure.
Of course, so you're a number 1 star. Oh no, that's 3.
3.
All right, that's 2. And okay, so here's number 1. Number 1 says, I am a volunteer. So talk to me a little bit about your volunteerism and the work that you do within the community.
Awesome. I'm glad I chose number 1. So volunteering has been very important for me. I think it's important to give back when you have been so fortunate and blessed in some areas of your life. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is volunteering with younger people, particularly those who are marginalized or underrepresented in certain areas. And one of the things I do is I take as many engagements as possible throughout the year to speak to young people, to share with them my journey, things I've learned, things I wish I knew earlier, and just to encourage them that that the possibilities are endless if they are willing to do the work. So that's been a hallmark of mine, and it's something I'm passionate about.
How did you manage your schedule in such a way that you are able to give back time to others to help them to develop their skills?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that was something that hindered me from doing this even earlier in my past. But one of the things I've done was to evaluate the importance of this. And as it got more frequently, one of the things I've done is during the period of graduation, I'll book 4 Fridays, consecutive Fridays off in preparation for being asked to do such. And if it never came, the opportunity never came, then no longer needed. But eventually it became a staple in my calendar, and it continues still today. So that's the way I've been handling it thus far.
So awesome. So I'm sure these young adults and the people whom you serve in this capacity, they're grateful to have the experience and the knowledge from someone such as yourself. Now, giving back, is awesome. Did you have a mentor or someone that helped you on your journey? Or
Yeah, I've had different persons during different phases of life who have played key role. Some some more nurturing and encouraging and helping me to see myself the way they've seen me, which is really important for individuals achieving their maximum potential. But yeah, but one of the mentors I've had was my track and field coach back way back. I used to do track and field, and in the beginning I wasn't very good at it, and it was evident and it was obvious. And this coach saw something in me that I didn't see at the time, and he was persistent in asking me to continue. And eventually, I think that set the stage for what eventually led to scholarships and some accolades in terms of track and field that helped me not only with the track and field angle, but with my career and my academics. So super important and critical to my journey.
that's awesome. Now, top of your class in physics and computer science, that caught my attention. And I'm just curious, how did you do it? And what were some of the choices that you made back then that helped to establish you and to give you that honor to graduate with such distinction?
Yes, yeah. So they ended up being both because I couldn't decide actually, and I wanted both. I really going through high school and my former years. Physics was always a passion of mine, and it was more because it gave a tangible things you could see and you could kind of interact with the world and figure out how things work. And then at some point during my teenagers, I also got a computer, which was
Oh,
mind-boggling. And just beginning with games and things of that nature, later on it led to like, how exactly does this work? And being able to send an email and an instant response, that spoke volumes to me. So by the time I got to college and things I chose both, and I did a combined degree in both. And in order to achieve it, it's not easy. It was tough, but I made I made a concerted effort to ensure that when I left this 4-year period, that I would leave with something that's worthwhile, that would have impact the rest of my life. And that's how I looked at it. It was challenging. I spent most of my time in the library trying to read and understand these things, but all the time focusing on a goal that I had. If I nailed these 4 years, I think I'd be okay for the next 40.
wow. So we're talking about you're making investment. You made an investment really, and in that choice, you didn't look just at the moment. You were projecting and looking long term, and so I'm sure maybe you gave up some parties along the way, or maybe said no to a few fun activities because physics. I remember taking physics, and I think I needed a tutor. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And so obviously it requires some level of focus. What does it mean to be an IT professional, and how does one prepare for that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. IT is a growing field, and it continues to increase in its pervasiveness throughout the industry. So, one of the linchpins in most organizations, or successful organizations today, is their infrastructure, their technical infrastructure, which is basically IT. And there's several different fields. It's not limited as it was 20 to 30 years ago. Most people think of programming or IT support. There are so many different fields that has an application of different knowledge areas or subject matter expertise. So you have security, you have venture capitalists, you have persons who are doing data scientists. So if you like math or those kind of things, you could do analytics. So it's a wide and growing field, and there's so many opportunities to explore within it, if you're willing to take the step out and explore it. So,
Mhm. So, in terms of preparation and the vastness of where a person can go in this industry, is there a general way of preparing for it, or can you just take different avenues to get there?
yeah, you can take different avenues to get there. One of the things that I find useful is to have a background in the sciences, particularly math. There's in terms of IT, there's quite a bit of logic in required in most of the fields, in understanding how things are processed in a logical order and what the impact of different choices you make will be on the outcome of that. But I would say math, having a good understanding of math is important or beneficial, but you can also have a different general approach of just exploring, learning to be literate with the computer, and then slowly taking steps further as you do with any subject that you want to master, and then looking at how things work, seeing if you could replicate something, and then after replicating it, then trying to build your own innovation. So again, it's a wide era, and it allows itself, or it can be, you can take advantage of many different fields within the IT realm.
Well said there. I'm not adding anything else to it. All right. So let's move on a little bit. So we're still focusing on my choice, and these are my choices in terms of the questions that I'm asking you. We're getting to the people's choice soon, right? All right. So as an IT leader and burgeoning executive, because we're going to imagine you advancing, all right? Knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently back then?
Wow. A great question. Wow, I'm not sure if you'll ever have heard this answer before. No. Nothing that comes to, I think my experiences and the way they've come about allowed me to be ready for where I am today and where I'm going. The one thing I would say or recommend for others is to take advantage of every opportunity that presents itself, even if it doesn't seem glaringly beneficial in the beginning. They tend to have a way of working for your benefit in the long run. So at least take advantage of the opportunity. If it turns out to be something you absolutely despise or you're not fond of, now you know that you're not fond of that thing and despise it. So it's better to know it early. And I could have done that. I could have learned to code early. I could have been more exposed to the things that would have probably got me to where I am earlier. But for my journey in my road, I'm pleased with the turnout, and I've just been fortunate more than prescriptive in my choices. So
now I'm going to ask you this because I need to.
Sure.
I'm selective with the types of foods that I eat, right?
Yeah.
And foods is varied across cultures. What happens when you are seated at a table and the choices that are there is not what you eat? What do you do?
You assimilate. I'll tell you.
You tasted and said, "Wow, this is delicious."
Now, in some areas, particularly, I think for us, if from the northern hemisphere, if you go to Asia, it's probably quite difficult as their cuisine tends to be different. Particularly if you want authentic, in China, you may be, and it's also seen, it's impolite, even more impolite there, to not eat what was presented at the table. So you have to be a bit careful there. But for the most part, I think it's also, as I said before, embrace the opportunity. So you may not enjoy it, but you'll learn something you do not enjoy for future reference, to know what restaurants or delicacies to go to enjoy in the future. So you try to as best to embrace it, and if it's just something that's terrible, as I've done, or I find like this is really not good for me, I cannot eat this. Can I have something else? And people tend to understand it. They also know that you're different, experiencing a new culture, but I always tried first just to see.
Well, the good thing is though, what I notice is that it's reciprocated. So when they're catering for a different group of people, they also take into consideration what their culinary needs are, and then they will try to cater for them. All right, so here you are, doing a fantastic job, working for one of the top 4 tech companies.
That's true.
Now, in this 21st century, it's all about the top 4 tech. how did you prepare for an interview at this company? People want to know.
Yeah, so I'm currently working for Google, which is awesome. How did I prepare? I did a lot of preparation for this interview. I first made sure that my technical knowledge was at the standard that I thought the company would benefit from. So there was, as in college, there was a lot of reading, studying, which was motivating for me. It wasn't like work or something that I didn't, because I love this stuff. It's in me to do this. So, but I also wanted to make sure I put my best foot forward. And when I'm preparing for these things, it's always evident or at the top of mind for me that a lot of people made sacrifices for me to have the opportunities I'm preparing for. So that even motivates me further to ensure that I do a good job. And I'm also representative, whether or not I want to be. I'm representative of a specific demographic of people, whether being Black, being male, and those things. So I take that with me, and it's an inherent thing I have. I can't lose it. So I also try to do it. So I've make sure my technical accolades are up to par. I also ensure that I'm communicating well. I'm keen that there are certain things I may know, and I've seen it already, but if you're not able to articulate it, then it's hard to convey that you know these things. So I spend time communicating, practicing what I want to say, how I want to say it, to ensure that it lands. And then I also bring who I am to the table. And I share my values, what I believe, the way I make decisions, so that that's clear. Some may caution against that because you don't want to offend, but I think it's important, if I'm planning to spend time in a company and I'm planning to stay and grow there, that they're aware of my belief system, how I operate, so that we could make a mutual agreement that this is beneficial for both of us. So that's my approach to it.
Now, forget it, the interview is over. They've hired you, you're loving the job, and you're excelling and doing what you're asked to do, and probably even more. Now, say that you are advancing within the company, you're doing amazing, and you're about to leave this role that you're currently in behind, and you're tasked with hiring someone for this role. What would be the top 3 questions that you would ask the next candidate?
Oh man. Wow. Wow. Impressive.
Yeah, no.
Impressive questions. Yeah, fortunately for me, again, even at Google, I'm now able to interview and hire it. So I'm part of the hiring process. And the reason that's important for me in all my prior roles, hiring has been my favorite part of my work duties, hiring people. One, you get to meet people, you get to engage, hear different perspective. There's such a diverse range, and you also get to inquire and ask questions. And it's a part of the culture, so it doesn't seem weird. It's expected that you'll ask. So it's my favorite part of my duty. So wow, if I'm hiring someone, what are 3 questions? Yeah. Okay. If I had to choose 3, I could tell you now, none of these would be technical, because I believe people can learn technical skills if you give them the right training. So it's more who you are. So the first I would ask is, define what success looks like for you as a leader. I think I'll ask them to do that. And the reason why it indicates how the individual thinks about what makes a good leader and what makes a leader successful. So I think that answer would give me some indication as to the mindset of the individual I'm interviewing. Second question would be, tell me about the last time you failed at something and how did you handle it? Again, to give me a clear signal as to how does the individual deal with failure, or if they see that, or if their perspective is that they have not failed, and that maybe it's that through the actions of others why things haven't worked, and just to see how they think about failure, and more importantly, how do you act once you have identified, or if you have identified you have failed. I think that's a good signal for any leader. And then thirdly, what are your go-to skills and methods for driving things forward or getting them done? Some persons tend to default to dictatorship or autocracy, more mechanical, where they get their hands dirty, and some go through influence, buy-in, leadership skills, and again, that's another good signal I use to evaluate the leadership qualities within someone. So those would be, if I had to choose three, those would be the questions I would ask.
So in this envelope here, we have the people's choice. So we went through your choice, we went through my choice, and now we're at the people's choice. So what I'm doing is getting different participants to send me questions when they hear about who my guest is going to be. So I was able to speak to some of the teachers, one teacher who runs the Mathletes program at Oceanside Middle School, and one of my sons is in that program. And I reached out to them and I said, listen, I'm going to interview someone from Google and he does this. Do you have any questions? So here are two questions from Oceanside Middle School Mathletes students. Number one, how did you come up with Google Classroom? Obviously, they're using a lot of Google Classroom even before quarantine to facilitate instruction. So number one, that was the first question. And the second one was, how did you come up with the Google Stadia? Are you familiar with
Yeah.
All right, so can you speak to these questions?
No. First of all, thanks for those. They're great questions.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak to them to the extent that you're able to Google them. So I'm quite new to Google as well. So those things were there before I got on board. But what I can say is that Google is very liberal with information, and it's in the nature, it's Google, and most of those things can be identified just by searching, but unfortunately I'm not able to give any more clarification on those, or even more details on it. It's a good question for me to figure out too. How did they do it before me?
There's going to be a bonus question, so
okay.
I'm going to get you to come back, and when you come back, make sure you have answers.
Okay.
Oceanside Middle School Mathlete students are not going to give up until they get Google to explain to them how to come up with the Google Classroom and Google Stadia, okay?
I'll find someone who could answer that for sure.
Please do. Thank you for bonus questions. All right, so the next question is from an Oceanside High School senior, and I have a hunch that he is, his name is Mr. Mehta Rohan, and he's going into computer science. I know that's on his radar. So he wants to know, how can I make my Google search engine run smoother?
Smoother? Wow. I thought it ran perfectly. There's, I would, if it's going into computer science first, I think that's a great choice and I commend it, but of course I'm biased. But in terms of it to run, one of the things that many persons probably don't know, that the search engine, it's not only able to search text, or it's not only able to return a text-based search, but it is a lot of ingenuity and configuration behind the search engine. So I would encourage it, if you're finding that the results that you're getting are, we have to define what means smooth. If it's not quick enough, I think that's a larger problem. A lot of people would be on. We're very keen to those things and making sure things are accessible for all. But I would more encourage it to learn the tricks behind what you could search for and how to eliminate search results so that they don't come up. And there are different key patterns you could put in that are not only text search, but they actually invoke different functionalities in terms of editing the search results so that it shapes it differently. So I would encourage him, I believe, Rohan, to try those different things, and you'll be surprised at what you could do to make your searches more smoother.
See, I studied library and information science, well, on the side, not as a practitioner, but from a theoretical standpoint. And so the Boolean search engine, and how you use those features to limit what you receive, or if it's fuzzy, how to add it. So maybe we have to talk to Rohan a little bit about how to capitalize on either using the AND
Yes.
or the
Or the
location
not.
parts and
Yep.
so forth like that,
Exactly.
right? All right, so Pete, I have one more from the people's voice, and brace yourself for this one, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I think so. I'm as ready as I'm going to
All
be.
right, so when this person saw your bio and the picture, the person said, I know him. I remember him from when I was a young boy. He worked in the media department at the church. And I go, yeah, but I don't know that name. So he wants to know, Naron, Pete, Stewart, where did you get Pete from?
Wow. Good question. Probably the most popular
Jared,
question.
by the way.
But Jared, where did I get Pete from? So it's a home name that everyone called me growing up. I am from the island of Jamaica, so growing up there, it's a home name. It's the name I first knew. It's the name I knew until probably close to my um not teenage, but a little before that, probably to 10. I thought, yeah, so the Naron came up much later, but that's my formal name, Naron. But Pete has just been a what they call a pet name, which is basically the name you go by when in the house and things of that nature. So depending on what someone use or refers to me as, whether it's Pete or Naron, I have a 95% chance of identifying just by calling my name where we have met before, how we've come into contact, so to see. So if it's more school or professional environment, I'll hear Naron. If it's anything outside of that, I'll hear Pete. So yeah, so that's a good question. I have to ask my parents as to how the name came up. It was and why Pete, but it's yeah, I don't have a good answer for that either.
I ask if leaders are made or they're born.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess I'm going to close our segment today with, does your name define you or do you define your name?
I define my name.
All right. And
for sure.
So as you wrap up our segment today, tell me, what would be the definition of Pete or Naron is in the dictionary? What definition would I find?
Let's do Naron. You would find integrity, empathy, and fun loving.
Integrity, empathy, and fun loving.
Yes.
Canopus Chats. This is Naron Pete Stewart, IT professional, fun loving, empathetic, and a man of integrity. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for stopping by, for talking to me in season 2, where the focus is on choices. And clearly, all the things that you have done from your nascent years to where you are today have helped to create that path. And so we are aware that the choices that we make will dictate the order of our lives. And here's a clear example of someone who is happy with the choices that he has made. Were they all perfect? Probably not. Did he cry along the way? I don't know. He didn't tell me. But you know what? All of them have really worked together to produce the goodness that we are now experiencing. Thank you, and thank you so much. And please remember, everybody, like, subscribe, and you gotta hit the subscribe button. Season 2 is in session, and I'm looking to add more as we bring to you great content. Thank you, and see you next episode.